Hello, this is John Ramsey, and this is My Big Comeback. And this is kind of a special episode today because this is our 30th podcast and our season finale for season 1. We've had 30 interesting people here that we've talked with, interviewed, and I like to say inspirational conversations with interesting people. And I have a very interesting person today, someone that's very dear to my heart, my eldest child, Kimberly. She's going to join us and help us with the podcast today. She's a respiratory therapist at one of our local hospitals, but her most important job is she's the mother to my amazing grandsons. And so, hello, Kimberly. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and you've been watching the podcast. Some you like it.
I do.
Good.
This is going to be an exciting episode.
Yeah, I think it will be. I have a lot that we want to share, but I understand you want to talk to me a little bit about some of the things that's on your mind. So just share with us a little bit.
Yeah, you share a little bit about yourself in every podcast, so I just wanted to ask you a few questions today and get to know you. So what is something you can tell everybody about what it's been like to be a pastor the past 35 years?
Well, it's been interesting, like I say, I've been the pastor of Harvest Worship Center for 35 years, and it's the first church I've ever pastored, and it's the only church I've ever pastored. I think one of the more interesting things that a lot of people don't know is our church has actually been destroyed twice. We were destroyed by a fire in 1992. We started in a little storefront church on Highway 231, and that church was totally gutted and totally lost in 1992. And then, of course, we moved to a little building in St. Andrews for 2 years. And then we moved into the Highway 390 location, and we were in that church for 24 years. And then that sanctuary was destroyed by Hurricane Michael. And so there's been a lot of stuff in between, but it's been an interesting 35 years for sure.
How would you say the church has changed in the past 35 years?
Well, when we're talking about the church, I think of the church, universal, the whole church, not just Harvest Worship Center. But, I've really seen, I got born again in 1986. And I was a part of an Assembly of God church, the old Millville Assembly. At that time, it was called Calvary Cathedral back in 1986. And the church that I was involved in, we were just coming out of the old-timey Pentecostal movement. And I've really seen the church change from legalism to materialism in 35 years, to where, I went through the whole thing of the word of faith and all of those different movements that have been through the church. And probably the one that bothers me the most is what we're in now. And that's, we went into this seeker-friendly mode, which by no means am I against being seeker-friendly. But I'm against, it bothers me some, against is probably a harsh word, but it bothers me some that churches are focused on more or less almost an attitude of no sacrifice. In other words, you're not allowed to inconvenience people. The service has got to be short. People are supposed to dress casual. The dress code doesn't bother me at all. I think it's the thing of the attitude of don't let church interfere with your life, kind of attitude, because I think God is important, and I think worshiping God is important. And I think when we focus too much on make this short and convenient, what we're really saying is I really don't have time for God. I really don't want it to interrupt my day, don't want it to stop me from doing anything else. And I think the idea of make God important, make worship important, make it a serious thing that we want to be engaged in. I don't want to be in a hurry to leave church. I want to be in a hurry to get to church, and I want to stay as long as God is dealing with my heart. And so I think the no sacrifice movement that we're kind of in right now is a weakness in the church.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you started the church when you were 23 years old.
Yeah.
So it was
early. Yeah.
Yeah, it was much different than what was your mindset when you were 23 and you decided to start the church?
I was really young, and I've always been a real pusher. I've been a real person that goes out there and just gets it. I mean, I'm just that I'm that way now. And I really believe that at 23, I saw different churches. I had traveled with your grandparents for years.
Right.
And we'd been, when we traveled, in the evangelistic field, the last year we were on the road, we did 340 services. Wow. It's only 365 days in a year. So, I mean, just for a few weeks at Christmas, we were at a different church every night. And I saw big churches, small churches, traditional, super charismatic churches, real modern churches, real old-fashioned churches. And it really, I really found the niche of what I wanted. And what I wanted was a church that was strong in the Word and free in the Spirit. And I really believe that's and that's why I started Harvest as an independent church. Even though I had an Assembly of God background, I had a Baptist background from when I was a kid. We went to a Baptist church, and I loved them both. I loved both the organizations. I didn't really like some of the government setup of them, and I wanted to be where we could be free to have any kind of church we want, and that's what Harvest was a Harvest Worship Center is an independent, non-denominational church where we welcome all people, and that's what I want it to be. And I'm hoping that that's kind of a thing that we still have 35 years later.
Yeah, I would say so. What do you believe like the hardest thing that you've went through with the church? Would you say that would be Hurricane Michael?
There's been so many things, but I think Hurricane Michael was hard because there's so many people affected. The people at FEMA told me, because they helped us with our rebuild that we're rebuilding now, that there was 84 churches destroyed in Hurricane Michael. And I don't think a lot of people realize that not every church came back, and there's some still fighting to come back now. And we pray for our brothers and sisters because it is something very difficult when you lose your facility. There's still churches that are meeting in schools, meeting in homes, meeting in other places, even 7 years later. And I know a lot of the world's moved on and said, well, that's old news. That happened way back then. It's still happening now if you're not home yet. If you're not back in your home, if you're not back in your church, you're still going through Hurricane Michael. And today, we're about 6 weeks away from finishing our church. But today, if you ask me, I'm still going through Hurricane Michael, and I will be until we get everything back restored. So Hurricane Michael is definitely one of the hardest things we went through.
Yes. And the church does a lot. I know we have the daycare, we have Harvest Christian Academy. Also, Hero's Child is something that, when did you start Hero's Child?
It's only about 2 years old now. Okay. It's not even 2 years old, almost 2 years old. We started Hero's Child Hero's Child is a completely separate nonprofit organization. It's not under the umbrella of the church. And the reason I did that is because I wanted it to be something bigger than just local. I wanted it to become a national thing. And Hero's Child is focused on helping what I like to call the people in the middle. Your grandfather, my dad, was an enlisted man in the Air Force. He wasn't an officer. He was an enlisted man with 5 kids. And I watched my parents just really, really struggle to keep us in the middle. We weren't poor, but we definitely weren't rich. I jokingly say sometimes that I grew up somewhere between Captain D's and Captain Anderson's. I mean, it was we weren't poor, but man, we were like at the last seat. We were right on the edge of poverty. And I saw my father have to work 2 jobs. I saw them have to scrimp. I saw them have to cut coupons and really watch the grocery bill and really fight, to keep a roof over our head. And I realized that a lot of people that work really hard do not qualify for most of the help that's offered out there. And there's a term they use for it now that's called the Alice population. That's what they used to call the working poor, but that's an offensive title to some people, so they don't use that. But really, what they're saying is these people are working super hard and barely making it. And, I say that looking at where we're at today with gas and groceries and rent, it's really hard to make it. And a lot of people, they're not lazy. They're working sometimes 2 jobs, and they're fighting to do everything they can to, have their kids in Little League too. They want their child to go to the things that everyone else's child goes to. They want to go on a vacation once in a while. They want to go to the movies now and then. Those things are hard right now.
Yes.
And Heroes Child helps three specific groups: teachers. Foster care, first responders, and military. And then we try to help with teachers also. And those things are, those are all hardworking groups. First responders, they don't get paid a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, when you think of what these people do, police officers, fire rescue, paramedics, they do extremely hard jobs, extremely dangerous jobs, and they don't get paid big money. Our military does not get paid big money. I know some of what that's about, and and with foster families, we make sure they don't pay anything, and we take care of them and help them, because my attitude is, if someone is willing to take in a child and give that child a home, everybody ought to be helping them as much as possible. So Heroes Child focuses on those things of military, first responders, foster families, and teachers. We try to help that. We just got a grant to help us with some of those, what we call scholarships for those families. We give a 20% military discount scholarship, and those are. St. Joe helped us with a scholarship to help those families. It goes straight to those families, helping them, and we're thankful to do that.
Right.
Very thankful.
And we I know we have the race that also raises money for Heroes Child.
We do a Heroes Child 5K, and that's about our biggest fundraiser so far in the year. But I mean, there's so many people we're trying to help. It doesn't go very far, because we're even helping families with child care like we do. I mean, the needs are so great.
Right.
They're so great. And for some reason, it's something that I've heard, it came up in the presidential debate, and neither person answered it. In the last presidential debate, they were both asked, what would you do to help with child care? They both avoided the question. They didn't even respond to it.
Right.
And most people feel like it's too much for the government to get involved in. But think about this. If there's no child care, there's no workforce.
Yeah.
Nobody can go to work
Yeah.
unless they know their children are
have
safe.
childcare.
It's important.
Yeah.
It is.
Important. Okay. Well, anything else that you can add that's happening with the church right now that you
Well,
wanna...
we're about to finish our new sanctuary. We're building a sanctuary and fellowship hall, and we've been working on it for a couple of years now. It's about 6 to 8 weeks from being finished now. And when we move into that, we're going to expand our school. And the reason we're going to expand our school is because we're using 4 or 5 rooms now that we won't have to use, because the church is using them. We're using them for sanctuary. We're using them for kitchen. We're using them for the 2 of the offices. All those will move into the sanctuary, and that frees up room in the school for us to add. Right now, we're talking about 4 to 5 rooms, depending on what age groups we take in. We're going to try to start our aftercare again, which we've not had after school care since Hurricane Michael. We used to have it all the time, and helped with several of the elementary schools, but we haven't been able to do that because of the shortage in space. So we're going to be able to open our aftercare again. We're going to be able to expand our child care and get more people involved. And helping families is about what that's about. We want to help them with everything we can. Let's take a break. We'll come right back.
Heroes Child is a nonprofit organization that is on a mission to help community heroes with the everyday cost of childcare. We know that heroes like our military personnel, first responders, and foster families need care for their children. Heroes Child awards these families scholarships that go to help pay their childcare tuition. Use the QR code on the screen to donate now, or visit heroeschild.org today.
Hey, this is John Ramsey. I'm back here. This is my daughter, Kimberly. She's my eldest child. And we're on here talking about the podcast and talking about me a little bit, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what else you got for me?
So I guess I want to know, who are your biggest influences in life?
I've been around some of the largest ministries in the world. We've had Jimmy Swaggart, Jesse Duplantis, Lester Summerall. All of them have been in our church over the years, but that's really not the biggest influence in my life. The biggest influences in my life are probably three people that had a huge influence on my life. One of them is J.W. Hunt, and a lot of people remember Brother Hunt from over at Springfield Community Church. He was there for years and years. And it's interesting how I met Brother Hunt. Even though we both lived in Panama City, I had never been to the Springfield Community Church. I met Brother Hunt out on the road because a lot of people don't realize that Brother Hunt had this network of like 300 churches all over the country. I mean, he was a dynamic, just an innovator and a real builder of people. And we started doing, back when I traveled with your grandparents, we started singing at these camp meetings where Brother Hunt was the preacher, we were the singers. And then I and some other preachers would preach the morning service, Brother Hunt would preach at night. And I got to know J.W. Hunt at those other camp meetings on Batesville, Arkansas, Mount Vernon, Illinois, Evansville, Indiana. I mean, we traveled all over. And he would preach. And let me tell you something about Brother Hunt that a lot of people don't know. He pastored full time. He would pastor the church here. He would finish preaching on Sunday night, drive all through the night to the other side of the country, and then preach the next night, drive all the way back. Sometimes he came home for midweek service and then came back across the country if it was close enough to do. Didn't fly, liked to drive everywhere, but the guy was a preaching machine. I mean, as far as a young minister being inspired, I was inspired at the way he could move a crowd. Because, I mean, it could be dead as a doornail. You could hear crickets chirping and give him the microphone. And in just about 5 minutes, that crowd would be on their feet. People would be just shouting, just waving their hands, just moving in the Spirit. And it was because he had a natural charisma. God had gifted him to preach, and he was just an amazing preacher. And I loved him, and he was really, really an inspiring person to me. But as I got older, my life changed. The ministry changed, different things changed. And I met a person by the name of Apostle Ball, F. Nolan Ball. And as far as my word and my preaching, I can attribute almost everything I preach today back to the words of Apostle Ball. And Apostle Ball was, he was so many things to me. He was like a spiritual father. He was like an influence, a mentor. But most of all, Apostle Ball was my friend. He was I met him at a really low time in my life. And I remember I was at one of these times where I'm thinking, man, everybody hates me. Nobody wants me around. I'm feeling kind of lost and going through a dark place in my life. And I'm walking out of what we used to call the Blue Top Waffle Shop on 23rd Street, which was destroyed in the hurricane. But I'm walking out, and this hand reaches out and grabs my arm, and as I go by, and he said, hey, do you know who I am? And I said, yeah, you're Apostle Ball. And he says, well, you're John Ramsey. And he said, now that we know one another, how about us having breakfast? So that began a relationship where me and Apostle Ball would meet for breakfast or lunch at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, for 14 years. For 14 years, I met this man for breakfast or lunch. And we just talked, and he just shared his revelation with me, and his revelation changed my life. It changed the way I preach. It changed the way I lived. It changed the way I pastor a church. It just changed me. And Apostle Ball was a great, great influence on my life. But there's nobody that was more of an influence on my life than your grandfather. I think when people talk about a father, I had the best. And he was just one of these people that, if there was anything I got from my dad, it was kindness. My father was just extremely kind. He was a farmer. He was a computer guy. He was an Air Force. He was a soldier. He was everything. But, there's 5 of us boys. All 5 of us, me and my 4 brothers were all born on different Air Force bases in different states. So we traveled all around, and we didn't know anybody in Panama City. My dad, he actually retired in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then he took his first job, civil service at Tyndall, and it was only supposed to be a 2-year job. And we got here, we liked the size of the town, we liked the community, and we never left. So here we are 45 years later, and we're still here in Panama City. And but your grandpa, my dad, James D. Ramsey, was by far the greatest influence on my life because he just taught me so much, and he was just a kind and loving person.
Yes, yeah.
You remember growing up on the property, what that was like?
Oh yeah, he did it all. He did
it all.
He did everything. Like he taught y'all everything. Each of the boys can do if I have a question about anything, fixing anything, building anything, yard stuff, y'all have it.
He would garden. The first time I poured concrete with my dad, I was 6 years old.
Wow.
I mean, he just, if it needed to be built or done, he did it. And he built things. He loved to create things with his hands. And that's why he loved to garden. He loved to grow things. He was really into it.
He loved animals too.
He loved animals.
Anything, even an alligator.
Yeah. I told someone one time that my dad could make a dog deal cards. I mean, my dad was just he would talk to his dogs and they would like respond to him. And he would tell them, and this is a crazy story for me to share, but, I was picking up, dog doo-doo in my yard one time, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm cleaning up my yard." And he says, "Why does your dog go in your yard?" I said, "Doesn't your dog go in your yard?" He says, "No." He said, "My dog goes out there." And he would teach his dogs not to use the bathroom anywhere in his yard. They would go out in the field behind the house. And he was just that way.
Yeah.
He was that way. He was an animal lover. Yeah,
Yes,
he was.
for sure. Well, I know he was a great dad because you are a great dad. Like, I always tell people that I have such a great dad, such a good girl dad too. But you have all daughters. How is it being a girl dad? Because I know that is different.
I tell you, the hard thing with me is I don't really have nothing to compare it to because I've never been a boy dad.
Right.
But I did grow up with 4 brothers, and I can tell you that the whole girl dad thing with 4 daughters there's a lot more emotions. There's a lot more emotions. I feel like sometimes during the teenage years that someone was always crying, and it was like a lot more emotional. But I don't know. I mean, it just all 4 of my girls are they're very close to us. They share. They're everybody is welcome at home and everybody is around, and I feel like there's a closeness in our family. And what I like more than anything is I feel like I did something right in that you all care about each other. Right. We don't see strife. And I think I grew up without strife. My parents would not allow us to talk about one another, and I won't allow you all to talk about one another, not negatively. If something's bothering you about your sister, pray for them and encourage them and help them if you can. And that's the kind of house I grew up in. Is we were never allowed to talk about each other. If you wanted to talk about one of my brothers, my dad would say, "Well, we're not going to talk about that. Just pray for them, or just mind your own business. It's not your problem. His problem's not your problem." And he encouraged us to always be on the same side. And one thing I've always told you girls is God gives you siblings so that you never have to be in this world alone. Mm-hmm. And because your parents won't always be there, but your siblings will always be there, and they are a piece of your parents. Right. And so that's what you're going to have. You're going to have, in the end, you're going to have pieces of your parents, and that's your siblings, and that's a great thing to have. So,
No, I love that we're all so close and we get together, and that's great, even into adulthood. If you could give any young fathers any advice, what would that be?
Really the most important thing that I tell young people, especially young fathers, is to soak it in. The hard thing about when you first have kids, you're usually young. That's the time when you're trying to establish your career. You're trying to establish your home, your career, and you feel like everything is important. Except you feel like your kids are important, but you got to work. You feel like you want to do this, but you're supposed to do that. But I would say don't miss anything that you don't have to. Soak it in because they're only little for a little while. And it is so fast. Everyone says you blink your eyes and they're grown. That is absolutely true. You blink your eyes and your children are grown. And the most important thing you can do is be there. Go to the dance recital, go to the ball game, go out in the yard and throw the ball with your boy, take your daughter fishing. Do those things that are important to you, because you feel like I'll do that later. There's not very much later. It goes really quick, and all of a sudden they're grown and they've got their own life. So you don't get to go do things with them anymore, and you'll miss them being little. And I recommend all fathers to don't put things in front of your family. Put your family first.
Yep.
Yeah, I really do.
What do you hope that we've learned from you? What do you hope that we have taken from you and what you've taught us growing up?
I really hope that my 4 girls have learned what I learned from my parents, and that's kindness. I think one of my favorite lines in the presidential campaign, I think 2016 or whenever it was, the first Trump run, was something that Mike Pence said, and he said, "You can't fake good kids." And I think that is absolutely true. You can put on airs for a lot of things, but your kids are a product of you, and you can't fake good children. And I hope my children have learned kindness, because that's what my mom and dad taught us, was kindness. Don't be mean to anybody. Don't say hurtful things to people. Never be the bully. And I always told you all,
Right.
the only thing that would embarrass me is if I find out that you were the bully, that you were the bad person. Don't bully people. Don't hurt people. Don't take advantage of people. Give people your kindness, because there's no telling what the rest of the world has given them. So be kind to people. That's what I
Right.
want my kids to learn. Let's take a break for a moment, and we'll come right back.
Are you ready to connect your organization with an audience that is eager for inspiration? The My Big Comeback podcast, hosted by John R. Ramsey, shares powerful stories of resilience and redemption, featuring guests who have turned life setbacks into major comebacks. New episodes drop the 1st and 15th of every month. For those interested in being a part of this community, sponsorship opportunities are now available. To learn more, contact Meredith Cobb at meredithcobbhwc@gmail.com. Let's make a big comeback together.
Hey, John Ramsey back with you. I'm here with my daughter, Kimberly. And we've been talking about me a whole lot, but what else should we talk about here today?
Well, I guess let's talk about the podcast.
Yeah, I like the podcast.
So you do many things. What made you want to start a podcast?
You know what? I like people. I like people, and I like people's stories. There's an old saying that says, "The man on top didn't fall there. He climbed there. He climbed up there." And I like to hear the background story of how people got to where they are. And one thing I say to my guests is, there's forks in the road. What made you go that way instead of that way? What made you become this instead of that? And it's always interesting. People's lives are interesting, And so there's a lot that when I talk about the guests that I've had, I'm thinking of just a few little things that, like in the last podcast we did with Commissioner Robert Carroll. He was born in Iceland, and I didn't know that. It was interesting, him telling me that he didn't even speak English when he came to America. Yeah. And that kind of stuff is interesting to me. State Attorney Larry Bassford talked about working in the oil fields. When I asked him what's the furthest he'd been away from Panama City, he says Iran. He'd been to Iran. Oh, wow. So I'm thinking that's a long way. That's a long way. Before the Islamic Revolution, I liked Ron Sharp. I liked all my guests, but Ron Sharp talking about him getting into this work at the Ark of the Bay with people with disabilities and super abilities. But some of that was inspired by his brother, who had went through challenges, and he saw the struggles that his parents had, making sure his brother was taken care of and helped. And man, that really got to my heart. And I think, I thought about Tricia Berry working in the children's burn unit and things like that. Mm-hmm. People have interesting lives. And sometimes we see the title or the position, and we don't know the person behind that position. And that's what My Big Comeback is about. It's about learning about the journey of people, the journey of who that person is, because that person was shaped and molded by a journey in their life. And it's an interesting thing.
Well, you've had a lot of people on the podcast this season. Who do you like? Who stood out the most? Who was somebody who was your favorite?
I don't know that I can name a favorite, because they all had their own interesting things, and they were all very gracious and fun to talk to. And I think even all of them, like Doug Lee that was on here a few podcasts back, him being an umpire for years, and it changes when you're watching him at a ball game, because when he brings up a rule challenge for the umpire, this guy was an umpire for years. He knows the rules. Yeah. And it's just inspirational conversations with interesting people. I like talking with Commissioner Daniel Raffield about he was talking about how when Tyndall Air Force, because he's Port St. Joe person. He was talking about Tyndall Air Force Base being private property and how the government came in with eminent domain and basically took that property so they could build Tyndall Air Force Base. And I mean, that's some Bay County history that people don't think of. That used to belong to somebody, and the government took that from people. So it's an interesting thing.
That is pretty crazy. Well, what do you, for the future podcast coming up, what do we have to look forward to? What's your plan?
Well, what we're going to start filming again in August. We're going to do another 24 people. And, you know, we're doing these a couple of times a month is usually what we do. And we're just going to keep talking to interesting people. You know, I know that everybody has a story. Everybody has something to talk about. And, you know, you're the mother of 3 children. You know, Carter, your middle child, is on the spectrum, and he's everyone I talk to, he's like a light bulb. He's a light in people's lives. Yes. What's the most challenging part of that? What is it?
So, as far as having a child on the spectrum, I think the hardest part is the initial diagnosis. I feel like that is such a hard situation because you kind of grieve the childhood that you thought you were going to have with your child. Yeah. Like, you know, you have to adjust to it, but it is definitely at first, it's like, okay, well, you envision all these things and you realize it's going to be different. It doesn't have to, you know, not happen at all, but you're going to have to adjust to the challenges and the way that you need to do things with that specific child. Every child's different in general. But you do take a moment to have to grieve, okay, things are not going to look exactly how I envisioned.
How old was Carter when you began to know differences, and what's the first difference you noticed?
So with Carter, honestly, I noticed he wasn't responding to his name. That was our first thing. I would get him in a car, and I remember this is the one moment that I was like, okay, I have to reach out and get an appointment. We were riding in the car, and he would always just stare out the window. He would just stare out the window, zoned out, like just nothing could get his attention. I would call his name. I would say
and that's how old is he?
He was 15 months old.
So just, really.
Yeah, he was very young, but I would say his name in different voices. I would sing it. I would try anything to see if I could get him to respond to his name. And nothing. He would not respond to his name. And that was... He had went to a daycare, and they had mentioned, like, what do you call him at home? And I'm like, I call him Carter, or I call him brother. And they're like, well, and then they mentioned it to me. They said, well, he's not responding to his name. Like, you might want to get that checked out. So that was our first initial, okay, what's going on? Like, why is he should be learning his name by now. And that was our first thing.
So you probably thought it was hearing first?
So I did.
The first thing they do is check their hearing.
Yeah, so I did. I thought it was hearing. He was having quite a few ear infections, so we got tubes placed. They did say that, you know, it could possibly sound like he was underwater, so we did get tubes placed, and after that, he still was not responding. He was not talking as much as he should. He was about 18 months now. He would say ball and hey, and that was it. That was not mama, not dada, not nothing like that. And so it created like a spiral. Like we got tubes, and then we went to speech, and then it just kind of like occupational therapy and play therapy and feeding therapy.
You feel like the therapy's really helped him?
Yes, yeah,
I do too.
Early intervention is so important.
What does early intervention look like for someone with a 2 or 3 year old?
So usually I would say it's usually speech. I would say that's usually the first delay that you can see, or like, you know, obviously not responding to your name. And that's also a hard thing too, because I know, you know, other family members, his dad, a lot of people, they're in denial almost.
I was in denial. Yeah. I kept telling you just need to be a little harder on him. You just give him a spanking, whatever. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
And so I think as a parent, you have to, and I kind of felt that way too. I'm like, oh, it's just speech. But I had to put my feelings to the side and be like, okay, I'm not going to be here forever. Like, I'm not going to be here with him forever. I want him to be able to function and have a good life when I'm not here. So my biggest goal is, whether it's autism or it's not, I have to give him the help he needs now. Yeah. So I can give him those solid like foundations that he needs to be able to live. So that's what I did.
And I believe Carter's very independent. I probably is a lot more independent than people felt like he was going to be.
Yes.
His speech is great. His communication skills are great. All of those things. What do you think is his biggest challenge right now? Is it holding his attention, or what is it?
So I think
How old is he now?
Carter's 12.
12,
He's about to be 13, which is crazy.
Yeah, teenage Carter.
Yes, teenage Carter. That's been interesting. I mean, he's so independent. Like, he's learning how to cook his own food. He's talking, he does all the things. I think his biggest, probably the thing that's the hardest for him right now is communication. Like, he talks, but it's learning to, like, social cues.
Yeah.
Okay, let this person talk, let this person finish, then you talk, don't interrupt. Probably social cues is probably the biggest thing for him right now.
I'm very impressed with him. I mean, I think he's really done well. And, to have his challenges, he's turned them into strengths. And I like to say that autism is really superpowers is what it is. It's not disabilities, it's super abilities. Right. You talk about the people like Elon Musk and stuff like that, that they have a degree of autism. They're on the spectrum somewhere. But in some ways it causes you to focus on things. A lot of people, they associate the whole autism thing with the earmuffs and covering your ears. But it's because their ears are super sensitive. It's superpowers is what it is. Yeah. But learning how to channel those superpowers into productivity and in a cohesive environment with other people can be challenging. But I hope to give hope to all parents that no matter what the differences are in your child, to embrace them and help them the best you can, because they're gonna live in this world and be a part of our world, and we want them to have as much joy as we can. And I think Carter has a lot of joy.
Oh yeah.
You can't stop Carter's joy, because he's gonna have fun whether you do or not.
And I love he has no fear.
No fear.
I feel like that is one of the greatest things you can have.
Yeah.
Is like, he is not afraid to talk. He, what he feels is what you're going to hear.
Well, and Carter wants to be on a microphone. If Carter was here right now, he would be hugged up to this microphone, because he walks up to me at church and he says, let me say something. He wants to use the microphone, which most of the time I don't let him, because I'm not sure what he's going to say. But, he has that. He does not shy away from a crowd, and he does not shy away from getting on the microphone and talking. And I think that's a strength. I think it's a strength. And I hope that he finds the best way to use it. Maybe he's a preacher. Maybe he's a talk show host. Maybe he's a lot of things. But you've done a good job with him. You've done a good job. I saw you as a mother face the challenges, and I think you handled it well. Yeah. And I think you've done a good job with the 3 boys, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that every one of my grandchildren is different, and they all have their special gifts, and we're thankful for that. And I appreciate you. Yeah. Yeah.
He's doing great.
Well,
come a long way.
And so you're the respiratory therapist. How you like that?
I love it. I really do love my job. It's a specialty. So you're focused on the lungs, and I like that.
You like that? Yeah. You like that whole hospital setting? Is it intense?
I do. It can get very intense, but I love it. I love the people I work with. I think that makes a big difference. It helps you get through the hard days. It's like having a good team. So
that's great.
I really do love
something
it.
you feel like you're going to stay in. You like it.
Yeah,
huh?
I do enjoy it. So
it's good that you found something you like. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. Here's what the last thing I want to leave with people. We love talking to people, and that's what My Big Comeback's all about. It's about talking with people about their lives, their challenges, their decisions, and their vision, their goals. And we hope that you'll keep joining in with us. We're going to start season 2 in August. We're going to talk to some more people about their big comebacks, challenges, life in general, and what it all. And I hope that you'll keep joining in. I hope you'll subscribe. Go on YouTube and subscribe to My Big Comeback. Get every episode. Then when it pops out a new one, you'll be right there and be able to listen in and see what that person's all about. It's available on YouTube, and it's also available to listen to on every podcast platform. And we hope that you'll keep tuning in and being part of it. Thank you for being on today, Kimberly. Good to have you. Thank you.